Walk with me through the veil of darkness where the black light shines brightest. In the beginning, the darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the waters. The darkness is not just a physical phenomenon, but a spiritual one. It's a place of power. Light that shines in darkness is a symbol of the divine, of the mysteries that lie beyond human understanding. As we journey through the darkness, we find that it's not just a place of absence, but a place of presence. It's a place where God dwells, where the divine and human intersect. The darkness is not something to be feared, but something to be revered. It's a reminder that there's more to life than what we can see and touch. The black light is a form of electromagnetic radiation, invisible to the human eye. It's a reminder that there's more to reality than what we can perceive. The Bible speaks of the unseen, the things that are invisible, as being just as real as the things that are visible. We're not just talking about the physical world, we're talking about the spiritual realm. The concept of black light is not just a scientific phenomenon of the mysteries that lie beyond human understanding. When we understand this concept, we can begin to see the world in a different way. We can see that the darkness is not something to be feared, but something to be revered. In the darkness, there's a light that shines brighter than any other. It's a light that's invisible to the human eye, but it's there, pulsating with energy and power. This light is the key to unlocking the secrets of the universe, to understanding the mysteries that lie beyond our everyday perception. Black light is not just a phenomenon, it's a doorway to a deeper understanding of the world and ourselves. The darkness dwells with light, and in the black, we find the seeds of creation. The absence of visible light doesn't mean absence of energy. Black light, invisible to the human eye, holds its own power. This is where the truth lies, in the unseen, in the spaces between. The darkness isn't just absence, it's a presence that holds its own light. We're talking about the power of the unseen, the power of creation. Let's continue to explore this concept, to dive deeper into the mysteries of the universe. The black light is a symbol of the divine, of the mysteries that lie beyond human understanding. It's a reminder that there's more to life than what we can see and touch. The darkness is not something to be feared, but something to be revered. It's a place of power, of creation, of transformation. Walk with me through the veil of darkness, where the black light shines brightest. Black is the foundation, the root of all, the darkness that gives birth to the light that stands tall. It's the symbol of elegance, of sophistication, of beauty that's real. Black is the night sky, with stars that shine so bright. It's the fertile soil where seeds take root and growth takes flight. Black is the power that's in every cell, the foundation that all things dwell. It's the rhythm of the drum, the beat of the heart, the music that sets us apart. Walk with me through the...
Yeah. Indeed, let's take that walk, you all. As we always hear the original music and sounds and creativity of the one and only, the seventh dancer, Lady Karima. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, you are now tuned into The Lion's Den, the segment titled The Conversation Continues, talking about what's on your mind. And we are indeed your host, the one and only, again, seventh dancer, Lady Karima, along with your brother in faith, Dark Storm, but you also know me as Baby Hebrew. And we welcome you to the grand ultimate truth daily social media experiment all right, which is the lion's den. And we hope that you'll enjoy walking with us on this very powerful conversation that we're going to be embarking upon. But of course, now you know when you come into the lion's den, experiment, you will be trying and you will be hit with the now 8 eyes. And that's intelligence, integrity, inspiration, influence, independence, insight, and information that we provide in the spirit of the Lord, thus making it infallible. There you go. The 8 eyes, infallible, which are all the factors of what? The facts. As we continue to hit you with frequently accurate, correct truths. And you know, when you roll with the lion and lioness, you're rolling with the pride. Because we always are permanently ready and destroying evil, starting with our own, as we walk as diamonds with a flaw and not a perfect pebble. A diamond with a flaw is a good thing because still it's a diamond. It has value. And when you chip away the flaw, you wind up getting perfection. All right? A diamond of perfection also goes under pressure. And we handle pressure here like anyone else. We're in the struggle like all of you are here listening. But yet we render ourselves as living sacrifices, as the Most High said we are to do. And we bring you this powerful format. All right? And you also know that we refuse to be perfect pebbles, fake. You know that perfect pebble is that beautiful rock. It's smooth. It looks good. But when you throw it in the air, it breaks. And so it is with certain people out here. They talk a good game. They talk all rough and tough. But when the pressure gets going and things get troubled, they break into pieces and leave you stranded. So that's how we roll, as diamonds with a flaw, as we strive for perfection. And you know that we also, one of the many factions of the anti-coon movement. And what's a coon, you all? You know what a coon is? COON, a complete, obvious, obedient, yes, a boss nigger. We don't do that here on the Lion's Den. We don't do that here as we walk as best we can in the spirit of the fruits of the spirit, with temperance, love, obedience, understanding, long suffering. We don't walk in the coon mind frame, that fleshly mind frame. No buck dancing, no samboing, no bedwenching, no big black buck, no picking any or porch monkeying around here. Why? Because not only can we not be sold, we can't be bought. And of course, this is also the home of point counterpoint, which is a fancy way of saying debating. Because sometimes we may not always agree and see eye to eye. There's that 1% we may disagree on, and then we'll just joust it out, toss it up, and then iron it out. It keeps everybody honest. Okay? And it's a good thing because each one, teach one, reach one. And of course, we come in the biblical formula without giving you a sermon of Isaiah, the 41st chapter, verses 21 to 24, which always tells us to what? Produce our cause and bring forth all pieces of evidence that make up the facts, that make up all aspect of our conversation. And we also follow the other biblical directive of 1 Thessalonians, the 5th chapter, verse 21, which tells us that at all times be ready, willing, and able to prove all things, and hold fast to that which is good. Because here on the Lion's Den, we also ask you, aren't you tired of being lied to? Well, if you are, you tuned into the right show at the right time, at the most correct frequency, because you're now being hit with Virgo energy. That's right, we are spiritual, tactical, analytical, political, critical, and we strive never to be hypocritical. And last, but certainly not least, when you come into the Lion's Den, one of the rules set forth by our other beautiful lioness and family member, I Am Manna. You better wipe your feet, mind your manners, conduct yourself in an orderly manner, and enjoy yourself. Because if you get out of line at any given time, in any way, shape, or form, well, the seventh answer, the lioness will swoop down with the quickness, break you down like physical fitness, and kick you up out of here with so much swiftness, not even a Jehovah will witness. And I'm going to just stand back and go, aha, because you was warned. You were told. Because see, as we strive to be hospitable hosts, we will not tolerate rude guests. It's just that simple. And so now with all these formalities out of the way, we are now lined up on runway 111. And as the seventh answer gives us clearance for takeoff, and as we now are gaining altitude, tonight's in-flight conversation, we will be talking about Queen Mother Viola Fletcher. Your fight. We will continue your fight. Now, for some of you who may not know who Queen Mother Viola Fletcher was, she's one of the last remaining living victims of Black Wall Street. Now, you all know the story, or just on our last conversation a few days ago, the seventh answer, I took you down the road to what transpired and around that time, and here it is, the beautiful Viola Fletcher passed away at age 111. The Most High extended her years, and she fought to her literal dying breath, seeking justice and reparations for not only her experience in slavery, but also what transpired on Black Wall Street when President Warren G. Harding did allow a whole militia of white men to come into Tulsa, Oklahoma, based upon jealousy. But you know, the old standard, some black men raped a white woman. And a whole host of thugs deputized by, I'm going to say, by Warren G. Harding and the government of these United States commenced to destroying the entire town and city structure, the whole economy, destroyed it. Because see, one thing about black folk in those days and times, though they were motivated with self-determination, focus, and the Lord's hand extending them a blessing while under this curse that we were placed, they never established a military. That was the key thing that was missing at all times. Even to this day, we don't have military. We don't have militia. to act and react when people come for us and hurt us, murder and kill us. And here you had a host of thugs, Irish, Italian, whoever, all militarized on a lie, that age-old lie. A white woman said some black men raped her in an elevator. Nick. And let me keep calm, and I'm gonna keep calm. I gotta keep calm. In being a liberated moderator, we are supposed to keep our emotions out of this. And I'm gonna make sure I do that. You know, but not only have we lost Sister Viola Fletcher, we also lost another legend, the beautiful spirit, Black Panther, Brother H. Rap Brown. I know he had a Muslim name and everything else in his elder years, but I'm sorry. You know, me, it's not that I don't respect anyone's faith or whatever else, but I stand on H. Rap Brown. That's the name I grew up with. That is the name he went to prison. You know, on fabricated charges in around the mid-1990s. And he was a beautiful brother. We're gonna cover him in another conversation. And we also lost reggae legend Jimmy Cliff. Jimmy Cliff. So many goodbyes, so many goodbyes, so many goodbyes. But we're gonna tonight we're gonna just go into the life and legacy of Queen Mother Viola Fletcher. We're gonna keep her battle going. We're gonna keep that. There are so many of us out here who are strong advocates of reparations. And what we're gonna do tonight, we're gonna have different voices. I'm gonna bring in different voices and different pieces of documentaries and voices, and we're gonna take you through again the history of this country and why you see certain people in power are so desperate to want to erase and eradicate our history. See, this is why there are so many white folks out there with what they call, well, they co-opted our black fatigue like they do everything else. They co-opted our black fatigue. See, the origin of black fatigue is us black folks. We walk around tired of some of the underbelly of our people who tend to be an embarrassment. You know, we call them ghetto, an embarrassment, and they do and say things that put a stain on our legacy and what we try to attain in the public eye. But here comes some white folks, as always, wanting to incorporate themselves in our affairs, just like they took woke and then turn it into something that has nothing to do with what the origin of what we said someone is when they come around us and, oh, you woke, meaning you are aware, your third eye, your spiritual antennas are on, and they done turned it into something that has nothing to do with our origin of what woke. And just like we say black fatigue, here they come, taking it as if with this whole notion that they're tired of us. See, but let me break down black fatigue as used by them, because comprehension and context are the two rudiments to understanding what you read, what you hear, all right, and what you watch. So let's break down when white folks say they are suffering from black fatigue. What they mean is this here. We are now and have always been that dirty stain on their legacy here in America that they can't get rid of. See, all that self-proclamation of the land of the free, the home of the brave, America, the leader of the free world, throughout the years, the centuries, we have always been that reminder No, you not. No, the hell you not. Y'all lying. You full of caca. No, you're not. And this is why now, and that's exactly why in these last 60 years in particular, all nations across the earth have been telling America, you need to shut the freak all kinds of the up when you talk about you the leader of the free world, or you want to go on someone else's land and liberate the people who are being oppressed or said to be oppressed. All right? You need to shut all kinds of the freak up. You ain't the leader of nothing. Freedom? Man, look at your country. Look at slavery. Look at what you did to Black Americans then and what you're doing to them now. Which is why, a great many people took exception to this fool, Nicki Minaj. Now I gotta go hard body. Nicki Minaj and her whole crapayola speech, her self-serving speech, talking about she's with Donald Trump on the issue of liberating the Christians in Nigeria when the majority of the people being killed in Nigeria as a seventh answer, and her information finding and digging, and you know how she give it up. You know how she do. If I give you 5 pieces of evidence, she gonna give you 20, 30, 40, a whole litany. All right? Showing you that the majority of the people being killed over there in Sudan and in that area, in that region, are Muslim, interspersed with some Christians. But here's my position on that issue. And this is what now Nigeria is saying, because I know we're being listened to, and there are other voices out here in this wilderness being listened to. But here on the Lion's Den, we are quick to remind America and Donald Trump real quick. Yo, my man, y'all can't talk about liberating Nigeria for Christians being killed when, hey, do you remember the Charleston Baptist Church out of South Carolina when you had Dylan Roof go in and kill 9 Christians and injured another 6? So basically he shot down 15 welcoming Christians. Huh? And then right after he was taking the Burger King, because they were showing him, hey, you're white, you shot down 16 niggers, and you can still have it your way. Huh? But yet, not only the Republican, but Democrats too, did not give us an anti-Black hate crime bill. Huh? But you know what? And then how about the other church shootings and everything else that transpired and hate crimes killing Black Christians here in America? Wait, matter of fact, the 16th Street Baptist Church with 4 young Black girls were bombed to death, and no one was ever brought to justice for that evil act. And all the other Christians feeding Black children to alligators for gator bait. Remember all the church gatherings on Sunday when good white Christians would take Black Christians and put on their Sunday best and hang them for entertainment. Do you remember that? And we have not received a dime in reparations. But here, Donald Trump wants to go into Nigeria, guns a-blazing, to take down the current president and leadership of Nigeria for killing Christians. Nigga, I have to just cut loose for just a second. Bear with me. Let me have it. Please. And this is why now Nigeria and other countries around the world saying, yo, we don't want to hear that no more. America, the liberator. No, No. You're in no moral position. So that's why they have black fatigue, because we continue to be that stain they can't get rid of. Or they can shut down all the black museums they want. They can shut down the school curriculum teaching black history all they want. You can do all those things, but it's not going to go away. Black Wall Street is not going away. See? And then here it is, the hypocrisy. Yeah, Miss Fletcher, or Miss Moore, you know what? I keep promising I'm not going to try and be extemporaneous and try to commit things to memory. But Mrs. Fletcher, her brother, and another young woman, I say young woman, they were the remaining 3 survivors. Here we're always told in America that, man, listen, oh, slavery happened so long ago, and this is the excuse we always get as to why we don't get reparations. It happened long ago, and well, listen, you weren't a slave. You weren't exactly affected by slavery, which is a bold-faced lie. All right, because the easy comeback on that is this here. All those Jewish people in Israel and right here in America getting money annually from America. Although what happened to them happened in Auschwitz, all right? But yet America gives Israel 3.9 billion and other oodles and boodles of billions of dollars yearly. And every Jewish person gets that money and enjoys that money based upon what transpired or is alleged to have transpired by way of Adolf Hitler and the whole 6 million Jews that were killed in what they call the Holocaust. And they get that money collectively and everything. But they weren't put in those ovens. They weren't the ones who were sterilized and murdered and put in mass graves. But yet they've been benefiting from and being compensated for those atrocities by the American government. I want to repeat that again. By the American government, although what happened to them was in Germany and other parts of Europe. And they get that money annually to this day. But black folk, all we get, like Charlie Brown, when he went Halloween trick-or-treating, all he got is a rock. All we get is a rock. All we get are these limp, lame excuses. See, that's what these white folk mean by they have black fatigue. They are so tired of us being that black eye, that stain that they can't get rid of, and it just shuts down their whole sanctimonious revisionist history. Oh my God, they hate it. But you know what? You're not going to get rid of us, and we're not going to go away. And there are those of us who are going to continue this fight. And now the God of Israel, as we are the true Jews, this Bible speaks of, I don't care who don't believe it at this point in juncture. We, the real children of Israel, we are now, there are those of us who are not going to let this go. So they have black fatigue, the audacity. And that's exactly why, for all my young white listeners who are liberated, moderated, and you're liberated in your spirit, now you understand why you're getting what you're getting, and it's only going to get worse because y'all have a lot to pay for what your fathers have never atoned for and don't ever want to atone for. See, this is why they are working so feverishly to once and for all try to shut down powerful mediums like the Lion's Den and other voices out here, because we are just going to be that thorn, that hammer, that boxing glove, or whatever, that's going to continue to slap him, punch him, and kick him in the face saying, nah, man, you ain't going to get off the hook. So yeah, Miss Viola Fletcher, here it was. They used the whole premise, well, you guys, you weren't around, you weren't a slave, so we don't owe you anything. But yeah, here you had Viola Fletcher, Queen Mother Viola Fletcher, and her cousin and her brother, the last three remaining of the Tulsa, Oklahoma massacre. They experienced it. They were there. But just a year ago, a year and a half ago or more, you had a judge in the Supreme Court of Oklahoma rule that they were not entitled to any reparations of any kind for the actual direct experience they encountered on that fateful weekend or day or days. Now, see the trick bag? See, this is why when some of you out there, you might bristle when we say white America, in particular, Esau. Well, look, we don't, look, if you want to talk about they Japheth, knock yourself out, man. We're going by biblical prophecy. They're doing these white folks, so-called white folks, are doing everything that the Lord said Esau would do yesterday and today. And they've always want to worm and weasel their behinds out of everything they do wrong. They can't take accountability for nothing. And they always moving the goalpost. But see, this is why the Lion's Den come through, taking no prisoners. And there's two functions the Lion Pride operates in. One, it protects the entire family structure of the lions and lionesses, the cubs, the old, the infirm. They hunt and bring prey. They seek out shelter. Okay, and everyone has their fun. The lion has his function. The lioness has her function. And they fight up and ward off rival clans or other potential predators and enemies. That's the protective aspect. But when it's time to go to war, again, hunt and take down prey, that's what they do also. And here on the Lion's Den, we'll protect our own. We're going to stand up for our people, whether they want us to or not. If you're a coward, stand down. You can move out the way. If you're a Tom or Thomasina, you can move out the way. We got this. And this is why we're not going to give up this fight. We're not going to forget the sister. She said when she was 107 years old, so that's 4 years ago, she said, whatever you do, don't let them bury my fight. Don't let them bury my fight. And sister, and she's now in spiritual essence, and she's now walking with the Most High, and I know He's telling her a job well done. Job well done. We're not going to let this go. Now, there's only but so much that I can do, the seventh answer can do. We're limited in our depth and scope as far as monetary abilities to get out here and take this country to court and to the world court, which is the United Nations. But irregardless of whatever, we're now seeing a divine shift transpiring worldwide. And this is why the Lord is now bringing the justice that we need and we deserve, and we gonna get. No, we're not going to let this go. Queen Mother Viola Fletcher's dead and gone, but yo, we're going to continue this fight. And tonight, like I said, as you embark upon this conversation, as it continues talking about what's on your mind, we are going to present our evidence. We're going to present different pieces of evidence in different lengths, time, and everything else. We've discussed this before, but I want to incorporate other voices to let you know how they feel about this issue as well. You know how we do. We're not going to deprive you when you come into the lion's den. We're going to give you a well-rounded discussion, different voices, opinions, because at the start and end of every day, it's going to still be your spiritual, intellectual, and emotional responsibility to go and check things out for yourself. So in our studies, in our investigation, we cross-reference, we follow all the rules of studying. And that is, we read to understand. We then go out and seek out various sources, different opinions, what is called cross-referencing to ultimately come to one conclusion. This is what the Lord instructed us to do in Hebrews 2:11, to study to show yourself approved, rightly dividing the word, which is the Bible initially. But in all areas of study, whatever we are into, whatever we delve into, we are required to study to show yourself approved. See, it's not enough. It's not about what so and so over here says, or what's. Hold on, y'all. Let me lay low. They kind of on my case out here. Now let me stop being silly. No, but on a serious note, it's not enough to rely on what someone else, what Malachi says, which is my Hebrew name. It's not enough to say, well, the seventh answer, Lady Karima said, no. We want you to get up off your duff and check things out for yourself to make sure that we are indeed, as we proclaim, liberated moderators. But you know we are. You know that we are. That's why a great many of you tune in, and that's why there's certain forces out here who block our algorithm. They unsubscribe so many of you. Some of you get your notifications turned off, and then you have to go and look up and find us on the air. Yeah, that's what they're doing. Because see, those who are steeped in lies, they're desperate to try to shut down the voices of truth. So, like I said, Warren G. Harding, the then president of these United States, allowed a white mob, gangsters, thugs, fueled by jealousy, to come into Tulsa, Oklahoma, and raid and destroy the absolute powerful success that our people were enjoying in that time. And I use the word our because I am not going to have someone try to have me individualize my experience in this country. See, let's not forget, we collectively came over here as prisoners of war. I hate that ADOS crap. I think it stands for African Descendants of Slaves. First of all, we're not African. Let's get that clear. I know some of you bristle at that, but we do not come out of the Hamitic race. We are Shemitic. And yes, there is a distinction between the two. All right? We want to make that abundantly clear that we are of the Shemitic family, not Hamitic family. All right? And we're not descendants of slaves. We're descendants of prisoners of war. See, don't forget that, yeah, there's some, well, wait a minute. Don't you guys teach that your God put you under a curse? True, that did happen. But it was a war campaign that did transpire. He did allow us to fight back, albeit it wound up being futile. But still we were kidnapped, raided, and brought over here. And see, the reading that they always want, that's why they sometimes will let that slide with we were descendants of slaves. But see, when you use the proper term, we are the descendants of prisoners of war. So that means we were brought over here, shanghaied, forced, kidnapped. Now, in all crimes, you have the criminal prosecution, and then there's also the civil aspect, wherein monetary restitution and whatever else deemed to be restorative is put in play. If we just came over here as slaves, there's no claim because we came over here as slaves. It was something that we want to do. The way, when you put it that way, but when you use the proper terms, because see, words and context, again, comprehension and context, they count. So now, with all these formalities and conversations out the way, and as always, the seventh answer, man, like I said, I'll come up with 5 or 10. She come up with 20 to 15 or better. But it's all in love. We're gonna introduce you to Queen Mother Viola Fletcher and her brother, and we're gonna give you their story on what happened on that fateful, one of many fateful days and nights in the destruction of our wealth and our business structure. As the conversation continues, fair use you all, and seventh answer, take it away.
And I'm vaccinated. I have agreed to take off my mask so that you can see my mouth.
Yes.
So I want to thank you. No problem. No, happy to do it. We want to talk about the Tulsa Race Massacre.
Yes.
And it's interesting because there's a lot of people who don't even know what happened that day.
That's right.
And we are blessed enough to be in your company for you all to teach us a little bit about what happened. Mother Fletcher, may I ask, what do you remember from that night?
Remember the noise of guns shooting, people running and screaming, and noise from the air like an airplane, and just so many things. It was disturbing, and fires burning and smelling smoke. And then we could hear someone going through the neighborhood that everybody should leave town, that they were killing all the Black people. So, that was frightening. So here.
What did your mother tell you about what was happening? How did she explain it to you?
Well, in parts, it's just so much that she said about it. But a few things that I remembered, because we were all frightened very much. That meant everybody was in a hurry to get up and move and leave town, to keep from being injured. So she was saying about how everybody was I don't know who was doing all of this, but people were getting shot and beaten and just rushed out of their homes, and so many uh, things was happening to everybody that encourages all of us to follow suit in what they said. Yeah, so to me, I guess, it just kind of stays with you. It's something you don't forget. You think about that all the time. Look like every evening, I kind of have a feeling it's time to run and no telling what
And
might
stop for a
happen.
seventh answer. Stop for a second.
Yeah.
You have that nervous feeling?
Oh, yes,
If you can
sure.
hear. Now, as you heard Miss Fletcher said, now here her and her brother both were children when this was transpiring. Did you hear what she said? She said she heard planes. Let me break that down. The planes she heard were the biplanes, okay, that were used to drop the bombs on various areas and locations of that great rich establishment of Tulsa. And see, that's always been one of their modus operandi, bombing. Let's not forget 1985 when they bombed the MOVE organization. And that's 1985, just 40 years ago, brothers and sisters. But look what she said she experienced. Planes flying overhead, and Warren G. Harding, president of these United States at that time, allowed this to transpire. As the conversation continues, go ahead, seventh answer.
Sure. Oh, yes. I hardly sleep nights and look like I lost my appetite. I want to eat a few times. And it's just always, they don't ever leave your mind, not mine. That's something I've been thinking about for the last 100 years.
It's a big year
Yeah,
for
yeah.
people in this community to remember what happened.
Uh-huh.
When you think about that night, do you remember seeing Black people killed?
Well, sure. That's who was getting killed. Yes, people was getting killed, and it seemed like they were breaking in people's homes and taking out some of their valuables, or I don't know what you could go off with, but just ramshacking the neighborhood, damaging most everything that the Black people had.
This isn't really holiday shopping. I mean, discovering
This rate, that's right, that's right. It's so many people got injured. I don't know if they were all dead, but they were laying out, not able to get up and move or get out of the way of whatever was happening.
And how old were you, Mother Fletcher, that night?
A little between 6 and 7 years old.
Were you able to take any of your things with you, your dolls?
Well, I don't know about the pets, but our parents gathered up all the children, say I had, and gathered us up to get us out of town. And I don't remember now whether we had any pets or not, but all the children were safely carried away.
And when you think about the way that night has affected your life, how do you think that night affected the rest of your life?
Oh, it does. I don't know, looked like I didn't get the education I should have had. And, we've just kind of sat back and had to start all over again about the parents making a living to raise their children and time to spend in going to school. So many years I didn't go to school a full term, so that I didn't get the education that I should have had, enough to make a decent living, like working and earning a big salary. So that.
And when your family fled, where did they go?
We left and went to a little town called Claremore, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you think that the city should recompensate you for what you lost? Do you think
Well,
the government should pay you back for what you lost?
Yes, I do. Not only me, everyone I think that was injured at during that time should receive something, including my family and others.
And stop for a second,
I
Seventh
think so.
Answer.
And
Because
what
see,
would
here's
that
what
look like?
happened. Here's what happened. Not only were they bombed, not only were they destroyed, where an estimated 3,000 or more people were black folk, men, women, and children were killed in this encounter. Those who survived, the insurance companies that they did business with, see, too trusting, turned their backs on them, refused to honor the policies and the monies they would do, and all that land was allowed to be stolen and reverted back to white people, including some of the bombers and the thugs who were on the ground looting and polluting and shooting up that great, beautiful place. Oh man, yeah, come on, man. But America, the land of the free, the home of the brave. All right. Never forget, black folk, children of Israel. Never forget.
Does that look like
We ain't
opportunity?
gonna forget this. Go, Seventh
For your
Answer.
grandkids? Does it look like money?
Yes. And they'll get better educations and better jobs and better living conditions and, just so many things now that families can enjoy doing that we can't afford.
What do you think this city would have looked like if the race riot had not happened?
Oh, it would have been beautiful because the street there, speaking of Black Wall Street, everybody was proud of that. It had stores and churches and school. Well, I don't know about I don't think it was a schoolhouse on the street, but they had, you know, everything nice that the neighborhood needed for their family. Yeah.
Mr. Ellis, may I ask you, how do you think your life has been impacted by the massacre?
My life has been back like this. I can't sleep at night. I have to have light. I love light. How it impacted me like when I got old enough to marry and raise a family, that's when, dawned on me so much. It was like you was afraid to ask for a job because you didn't think to get a job. Finally, I got a job. I had a wife, and I raised 7 children, 3 girls and 4 boys. It was hard for me. My wife wasn't able to work. Back in 1943, 42, I got married, and I had my first son. He was a junior. He was born. I went in the United States Army in 1943. 1943, I just had a young son, a baby, and back then, he was drafted into the Army. And when I was drafted into the Army, we had a segregated army, a black army and a white army. And I went through that for 2.5 years. It was terrible. I mean, like a lot of guys got medals for what they did. See, I went over. I went in. I was drafted, and they sent me out of the United States over in Indian Burma and China.
I'd like to go back to something that you said.
Okay.
You said, sir, that you still have nightmares. And
Yeah.
Mother Fletcher, you said you have trouble sleeping. What are those nightmares about? What do you dream of?
I dream of what my sister told me. I dream of all of what happened back in there. I wake up about 4 times a night. And some nights I'll say woke say 30, 40 minutes so I can before I lay back down. It sticks in my mind. And then like I went to service and same thing. I took my life, I put my life on the line for my country. And I was just looking to survive that. Lucky, just lucky.
Lucky.
And back in those days, black people, even in the, when I raised my family, we worked for like, you work 10 hours a day for $1, maybe 12 hours a day.
It wasn't fair.
Wasn't fair.
It wasn't fair.
I didn't get a chance to get I only got a chance to get a 12th grade diploma. That's after I got out. I didn't get no chance to go to no college. I had to work.
So this affected you for years.
It affected me. A person never forget that. It's not been easy. I'm 100 years old past. We're looking for justice. I think we should have justice for all of this.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's just so terrible.
And let me come in, Seventh Answer.
We have built the United States.
And see, this is why the Black Boule was brought into play. The W.E.B. Du Bois and all the rest of these coons of yesterday and today who sold out the gatekeepers to make us think that if one little token Negro is doing good, we all doing good. No, we're not. Listen to what this man said. Listen to what his sister said. They were deprived and what they lost collectively. But their loss was also our loss. And we've inherited this world. Because what happened to them happened to us. When they got robbed, we were robbed. And yet you have black folk who choose, right along with white folk, to be willfully ignorant to these affairs. But not us. Nah, we're not going to forget. And we're going to keep this in the forefront to the day we die, depending on when that is. Run the video, Seventh Answer.
The black people did. We don't get no credit for that.
Fletcher.
I'm looking for better things in life. I hope before I leave this earth. It's been rough.
The Ergo Smart Base from Tempur-Pedic automatically.
Brother just said, when you have those nightmares, what do you think about?
Well, the same thing. So that night never leaves your mind now. You want to, if something happens, it stays with me the rest of your life, And you're in fear that it might happen again. It may not be the same way, but something different. But you always, as he said, you can't sleep. Look like instead of having a pleasant dream, that the dream turns out to be something like that about, the danger we were in and if it'll ever happen again and all of that.
Do you think the people who drove you out of Tulsa should be held accountable?
Well, the people are, yes, who's responsible for doing it? We think so. I think everybody should have a share of that. Not that it will bring back the feeling, but it would make us comfortable, especially me, since I'm in need of everything like transportation and homes and cars and different things, I would like to own. I don't have now. So
because it takes a lot to rebuild. when something has been taken, when
Yes, it
something
does.
has been burned,
Yes,
right?
yes, it does. Yes, it does.
It
So,
takes money and time.
yes, yeah.
Mr. Ellis, there was something you said that really struck me.
What's
You
that?
said that in your life, you're wanting to see justice.
That's right.
When you look at everything happening in America right now, the young unarmed men who are being killed, calls for police reform and justice, how far do you think we've come as a country in your lifetime?
We come a little piece, not too far. We're not come too far yet. We need to do a lot more. They have me on what they call a Facebook on form and like the mayor. I have a certificate from the mayor for being a good citizen for business. I have a certificate from I have 2, 3. I can't think of the other ones, but and people call me and won't ask me ideas about the vaccines. I'm on Facebook. They ask me to speak for them and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
They call me the wisdom man.
The wisdom man.
That's what.
Now, you do sound quite wise.
And I have a lot of friends ask me questions and advices about what's happening right now. Say, Hughes, they come and say, well, what do you think about this? They call me up and ask me. I tell them, I think it should be something be done better than it is right now.
And what does that look like? What do you think justice looks like?
Well, I guess I don't have an answer for that.
That's okay.
But
What do
leave
you
it up there.
I think what it looked like to me, it keeps happening. So we're going to do something about it. Well, I think Congress, I understand, I'm looking at the news, I think the president of the United States, they're going to bring that up in, they're going to make a law about how the police department does that.
Mm-hmm.
We want to change for that.
Mm-hmm.
We want the police better trained. That would help some. So Biden is putting in law in the Congress to write a law up about that.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly about how the police handle things.
Especially communities of color.
Yeah.
I want
Okay,
to
hold on, hold on.
Mr. Ellis, that it was.
Now, we know how old this interview is, but Joe Biden, he reneged on that Police Accountability Act. As soon as his broke down, decrepit ass learned he was president, he reneged on that promise. Okay? He reneged on the anti-black hate crime bill and rolled it up and gave it to the Asians. He reneged on all that. But the true justice that the elder should have said, but we gonna say it here. And we gonna say it as always. The true justice is this. For all you intelligentsia agencies listening, the God of Israel, Yahweh, in the name of his son, Yahweh Shai, wants you to let we, the true Jews, the children of Israel, here in the four corners of America and the world, let our people go. Let us go, that we may serve him. That's the justice that is now in effect and needed and commanded. Run the video, seventh answer.
Was difficult finding a job, and it made you nervous even to go for a job.
You would go for a job and the guy tell you, say, you fill out the application. Every time a guy says, we'll contact you.
I posted these two nearly identical videos, and guess which one
I'm going to call?
No.
But what about, I mean, if you had seen Mother Fletcher, for example, you saw black bodies in the street, you heard gunshots, you saw white men holding guns, did it make you scared to interact with white people after that?
Yes, really. Sure it does. You know, I think if people are brave enough to do that once, they will do it again. So we fear that as we live from day to day.
Do you still have hesitation around interacting with whites?
Well, little things happen, you know, that's not very pleasant, but we live with a lot of things like that. It seems like that it's the people of color that seems to be, you know, kind of on the backside of everything. So that's the way we live. Yes, sir.
You've seen so much in your lifetime. What a blessing to be here and to be able to learn from you. Do you have hope for the future?
I do.
Yeah,
I have hope.
Yes, sure. Yes, sir.
Sometimes have tears running.
Beg your pardon?
Sometimes tears be running.
Sometimes it makes you cry. What makes you cry?
When I was in the United States Army, when we get on a ship, the black soldiers put it in the bottom of the ship, in the hull.
Mm-hmm.
We go down on those steel ladders about 3 or 4, 5 down, you know, and we had bunks in the hull of the ship.
In the very bottom.
The very bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And now, when you look to the future, what gives you hope?
I hope that gets better. I understand. I've talked to a lot of military young people, and they said it's getting a little better. I have friends, young people. I've seen young people kind of hang around me, and I give them a few things what happened back then, and they said it's getting a little better for black people to be in the United States Army. It's getting a little better.
A little bit better. And Mother Fletcher, what about you?
Well,
what gives you hope for the future?
Well, the same as he said, because I had 2 brothers in service, 2 sons in service, and 2 grandsons, 6 of them, the men of my family, and they all have, you know, the same feeling about it. You know, they say that being in service is no fun, you know. So whenever you have to go through with that, well, and we feel, you know, that once they're done that for their country, but they deserve the best of everything. But it seems like that's what we always hope for.
Last question. You all have begun this litigation. What is the best case scenario? What do you hope comes out of this lawsuit?
Well, in my case, something's good for me that would make life more possible, that I could live more comfortable, you know, with things that I need, like, as I said, transportation and taking trips. I mean, a nice big trip, like going to Africa.
That would be great. I hope you make it to Africa. That would be great.
Yes, you know, something that I've never done, you know, so that's what we look forward to.
And what about the young people in this community? What do you hope this lawsuit could provide for the young people here?
To encourage them to try to go to college and get a good education and good jobs, and then they would be able to do the things they wanted to do. See, I could do more if I had a better education, or all of my family members. And most of my family that went into service, they were young, that they didn't get to finish school also. So I know, yeah.
Is there anything about that night or its impact on your life that I did not ask you?
Yes, there's a lot of things. I can't think of a lot of things. Sometimes you go to work. When I was in the service, I had to they select me for guard duty. I had to set up the whole perimeter. And on that job, you'd be standing there. And you had to check on all your guys. And you could got shot. You're in the country. You could got killed there. Just love it. God will be with you. Just love it.
Lucky and blessed.
Yes, blessed. It's scary.
I
And
can
you
only imagine.
don't go to sleep at night.
I can only imagine. And Mother Fletcher, what about you? Is there anything about that night that you'd like to share that I didn't ask?
Well, it's so much that I really don't like to talk about it, you know. And so, but every once in a while we get into a deep conversation. Think about it, it haven't been published enough. So many people don't even know about it. You know, we're talking about this year of the 100-year celebration. Well, some people are wondering what and why. So I think if it was published more, like in a book or on the news or a day to celebrate, well, that would help a lot.
What do you think, for people who don't know what the Tulsa Massacre was, what do you think is the most important thing they should know?
Well, everything that happened then, if it could be published, you know, that would let people know that how things went and how to fear if it ever happens again.
Are you worried about something like this happening again?
Sure. It's really, yeah.
You worry that another massacre could happen?
Sure, I think it could. It may not be for the same reason, but you know, things can happen. I mean, just like the virus we have going now, you know, well, that was something we wish could have been avoided, but we have to suffer through that. So it's the way I feel about it.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel.
Yeah, and we're back as the conversation continues. But see, you know what? Unfortunately, they will lose their case. But what judgment actually set in motion where I knew from the moment they were given their right to bring their case to court, you know what made me know they were going to lose? About a year before their case in 2024 transpired. I'm going to take y'all back to 2023. Man, time has flown. But out of California, okay, there was a big San Francisco reparations heist. For some of you that don't remember this case, let's not forget that under Governor Gavin Newsom, current governor of California, you had the NAACP, supposedly for black folk, San Francisco chapter, who rejected a $5 million per person proposal by the state. And who was at the helm of that rejection? One Reverend Amos Brown, who said, we don't need $5 million per person. No, all we need, Master, is more public housing, some programs, some cultural centers, and educational programs. And you know what was insane about that? Here it was. You had certain forces within the government structure of California that was dead serious about allocating $5 million per person. But you know, Gavin Newsom, he's that governor. That dude, man, oh, he is a piece of work. He just couldn't, okay, guys, you got to come up with a trick bag. I can't let this money get out. We can't pay the niggers. And here comes the NAACP chapter, San Francisco, Amos Brown, who decided to be the voice of all black folk in the San Francisco area, talking about we don't need no $5 million per person payout. Of course, people were up in arms like, nigga, what are you talking about? It was that literal. What are you talking about? We. What you mean, we? And you know what was even more insane about that? In February of 2023, the same Amos Brown, all right, in that San Francisco chapter of the NAACP had received, you ready? You ready? A $50 million donation from Wells Fargo. All right. And here it is. Amos Brown first, in that San Francisco chapter of the NAACP, sabotaged the reparations for black folk. And then about a few months or so up from that, almost a year up from that, going into 2024, before Miss Fletcher and her brother and the other sister that survived would do their case, you had the California Black Caucus, comprised of non-Black Americans, do a last-minute 12th-hour sabotage of reparations for black folks, all at the behest of who? The governor of California, Gavin Newsom. Man, yo. So that precedent set in motion why the ruling, the Oklahoma Supreme Court, and the supposed judge over that case ruled against him. See how you have, when you have coons and boule gatekeepers at the forefront? Huh? But yet Donald Trump wants to go into Nigeria. The Republicans want to, once again, with their whole sanctimonious bullshit noodle, want to go into Nigeria to help some Christians being killed. You believe that? And look how they're treating us. And look what they said. The elders said, we're afraid something else might happen. That means, poor babies, they must have forgotten what happened to the people in Move. Or before that, they must have forgotten the 16th Street Baptist Church. They must have forgotten in their old age all the murders of the leaders of the time, Malcolm X, Medgar Evers, Martin Luther King, the attacks on unarmed black men, women and children with water hoses, dogs, police, the murders of John Kennedy, Robert Kennedy. Oh, it has happened again. It is still happening. The Tamir Rice, Malcolm Brown, I'm going to name names you never heard of. Tamika Sykes, Latasha Harlins, and so many others. It's still happening. All these young black men and women being found lynched, hanged, serial killers in Texas, and also now out of Arizona. Yo, come on, man. That's why it's going to take a God of some such power to come here and save us we're going to continue on. And now the seventh answer. Let's run this video. Listen carefully to the lawyer of one of the defendants in the, one of the lawyers representing Miss Fletcher and company. Go to work, seventh answer.
Special for our survivors because they're survivors. We simply want the court to treat them as regular Americans, first-class citizens.
Justice for Greenwood celebrating after a judge allowed a portion of the group's lawsuit to move forward. They sued the city, county, chamber, and others, seeking reparations and rebuilding in connection with the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre.
I'm Demario Solomon Simmons. I'm a national civil rights attorney who represents the last known 3 living survivors of the Tulsa Race Massacre, also the founder and executive director of the Justice for Greenwood Foundation. The first time in over 100 years that a case related to a Tulsa Race Massacre will move forward in some form or fashion. It's historic because this has never happened. There's been many attempts. Over 100 lawsuits or so have been filed in the past. And we got to the next stage that we survived a motion to dismiss. We have 3 living survivors. They want to see just what we're hoping to get: due process, justice. They want to see the law applied to them as it would be applied to anyone else. That's the beauty of this case. We are actually utilizing a law that's been on the books in Oklahoma for well over 100 years. And for over 100 years, the Oklahoma Supreme Court has stated the way that we are trying to utilize this law actually fits right in line how it's supposed to be used.
I'm Sarah Soffinelli. I'm special counsel for pro bono initiatives at Schulte, Roth & Zabel, a New York-based law firm. We have the great honor and privilege to co-counsel with Demario and represent the survivors, the last 3 known living survivors and descendants. There's no dispute by anybody, not by the defendants, of what happened, that there was a massacre that lasted 2 days, that decimated a thriving, peaceful Black community in the Greenwood area of North Tulsa. Hundreds of people were killed, thousands of homes and businesses burned to the ground. Private planes dropped bombs on that community, on American soil. It was the worst act of domestic terrorism in our history. And a challenge was a lot of people didn't even know about it. I think for a lot of people to understand initially, how are you suing about something that happened over 100 years ago? And something we've all heard is some people, particularly white people, might say, but it was my ancestors. What do I have to do with it? What's going to come out of this? That can be challenging to try to explain, well, in our situation, for this lawsuit, for this case, for this community, we're not talking about something that happened 100 years ago. We're talking about something that's happening right now to this day.
Michael Swartz. I am a litigation partner and co-chair of the litigation group at Schulte, Roth & Zabel, and I'm also counsel to the plaintiffs. We think a lot about the precedent that this case sets. It is based on bedrock Oklahoma state law. It has a broad public nuisance statute. And although public nuisance had been applied for 100 years, people hadn't thought to apply it in this type of way to criminal acts conducted that destroy a community, to destruction of property that destroyed public rights. We went in court through crime after crime that was committed by the defendants back in 1921 and the harm that continues throughout this day. The remedy will be for the public at large. It's not for any one individual. Lots of people should benefit, but it's a chance to restore the Greenwood community, North Tulsa, to what it was. I mean, you'll never get those years back, but the idea is that the whole community is going to have another shot at moving forward, having everything, the physical things rebuilt. You can't repair the whatever happened to people and their suffering through all the years, but rebuilding that society and giving the community a chance going forward.
Yeah, but with all that, we get past all the fancy talking and everything else. Let's not forget though. See, what put us in this bad predicament in the area of reparations is what we allowed Barack Obama to do. And I'm going to say that. A lot of black folk, man, look, he gave the clue on how It was one time he said something that was very, very direct, and I got what he was saying. He was saying to black folks in particular, if you want me to do something, if you want me to do something for you, make me do it. Make me do it. See, he gave the signal, but a lot of nigger leaders, I'm gonna just say, they just dropped the ball. They dropped the ball. They interfered and ran interference for massa. And though, you know, Barack, he tried, but here, some of y'all said, well, what were we supposed to do? I'll give it to you in so many words. What Barack was saying, listen, black folk, you have all the leverage in the world since you make up the majority of the votes for the Democratic Party. So if you galvanize like the homosexuals did, if you galvanize like everybody else and make your voice be heard and push it where I got to do it, nothing can stop. Nothing can stop it. But no, as usual, some black folks, at the behest of white masters, jumped in the front, ran interference, and Barack, well, look, you let him off the hook. We didn't make him. And for white folks, hey, if your black president, when he was there for the 2 terms he was there, didn't do it for you, you could forget about it. Sorry, Charlie. We damn sure not gonna do it for you now. We proved sometimes to be our own worst enemy, man. Really, seriously. Run the video, Seventh Answer, as the conversation continues.
Blocks away from where this happened, and there are kids that have no idea that this happened, that this horrible, racist, vicious massacre of hundreds of people happened right there in their city.
They would like to forget it ever happened. You know, Tulsa says the most beautiful city, the oil capital of the world, the blessed place to live and all that. If they keep digging up this right, somebody might think it's not so good.
It only took 18 hours for a thriving, bustling Black community to be reduced to ashes.
300 people were killed, over 4 miles of 36 square city blocks destroyed, 600 businesses destroyed, 1,256 homes destroyed. I say all the time, Greenwood is the oldest and largest crime scene in America.
There are people who have eyewitness testimonies, their descendants are saying, my dad told me that he helped to load bodies onto trains headed north so they could be buried somewhere else so that there would be no accurate count here.
They tried to hide it, cover it up to make it like it never was, but it's one of the worst ones we ever had. And there's so many of the people that lived then, they're gone.
I just can't imagine it. I just can't imagine what it was like for them. And it took a lot of bravery to get out there and tell their stories as well.
I hope that we don't take this history and glaze over the things that are difficult to talk about. Life is difficult. You have to talk about the things that impacted people heavily, and this is one of them.
This is not just a Tulsa exclusive conversation. People in Washington State, people in Florida, people in Maine should know about the Tulsa Race Massacre.
When we talk about Black Wall Street, that's the point of pride there, is that it was the epicenter of Black wealth in this part of America.
This was the Mecca of the Black experience in the Midwest in the teens and 20s. People came here from all over the country to have opportunity because Oklahoma at that time, this was still the Wild West.
That's the interesting thing about Greenwood. Greenwood was more than a street. Greenwood was a dream that represented something for the whole nation.
The Greenwood district was established by a man named O.W. Gurley. And Mr. Gurley got 40 acres of land, and his stipulation was only Black people can buy this land. So that land was by the Frisco Railroad tracks. And because Black people were segregated to just one part of the city, a big bit of the business dollars that were being spent in the Greenwood district, so that people became quite wealthy, or people were, because of necessity, spending their money in their own communities. People in Greenwood were prospering.
This is the height of segregation. You could not set foot in downtown Tulsa if you were a minority and you did not have a working permit. If you did, you were subject to fine and imprisonment. There were no people of color of any kind who were not in a service capacity in downtown.
We had our own business, and we supposedly had our own theater and grocery stores and dry goods stores, had business of all kinds, because we were not allowed to purchase things in downtown.
But because of that prosperity that was happening in the community, that also becomes a tension of jealousy. And so this was based on race, solely based on race.
A lot of white people were looking at this affluent community and wanted to get rid of it, wanted it to be wiped off the face of the earth.
How does this happen? It really just takes one spark.
It started in the Drexel building with a shoe shiner named Dick Rowland. There's an altercation with him and a white elevator operator named Sarah Page.
He gets in, appears to have stumbled the walkway between the outside of the elevator and getting on, stumbles and grabs her hand. She screams, and someone hears this, and this is reported as an attack. And so this creates the narrative going through the community that a Black man has attacked a white woman. So, the white community comes in big numbers when he's arrested because of this.
We see a Black mob thinking that Dick Rowland is going to be lynched instead of see his day in court. We see white mob come to meet that Black mob. There was a shot that was fired, and then the massacre broke out.
They started shooting with one another there on 6th and Bowling, of course. When they started shooting, everybody scattered. Negroes decided that they were going to stop at Frisco tracks and Cincinnati and make a stand. But they were outnumbered, and naturally they were pushed on back.
It escalated to when the white community invades the African-American Greenwood community, demanding that people come out of the house and saying, if you don't come out of the house, we will burn the house. We will kill the ones who are in the house.
They set our house on fire and went right straight to the curtains and set the curtains on fire. When my mother saw them coming, she says, you get up under the bed.
I was shot at. The bullet hit the wood and the splinters split me into my arm. I saw where it was coming from, and of course, we tried to return some of their courtesies.
I remember seeing people get shot.
A lot of the eyewitnesses talked about bombs dropping from the skies.
Airplane came and dropped. Guess we would call them fire bombs now, gasoline in jugs, set them afire, So that's how the Blacks were driven out of Greenwood.
Their claims over the years were refuted. It's the conspiracy of silence.
I don't think that White Tulsa shows up very well in the true story of the riot. And people don't like to discuss something that casts aspersions or brings some kind of discredit on them.
John Hope Franklin was one of our country's most established and revered historians. He worked along the likes of Martin Luther King Jr., Thurgood Marshall, so many titans of the 20th century.
We had narratives passed along through family stories where the families would say, this is what happened. This is what my grandmother told me. This is what my mother told me, or my father told me. And so we had those stories. People discounted them because they were narrative, They trusted more the findings from Buck Colbert Franklin, and those are held at the Smithsonian.
Buck Colbert Franklin was a lawyer in town at the time and kind of wrote this 10-page memo of his account of what was going on that night and what he heard and what he saw. And this is a part of it. From my office window, I could see planes circling in midair. They grew in number and hummed, darted, and dipped low. I could hear something like hail falling upon the top of my office building.
For those who are more documentarian historians, it made it something that's a little more credible from an eyewitness who saw it. This is the first time that we're attacking with airplanes a community within the United States. We're attacking our own. This is the first documented time where we're doing that.
Initially, the death toll was around 36 people killed in the massacre. But in 2001, you had the release of the Tulsa Race Riot Commission report, and the estimates there put the death toll upwards of 300. So 10 times the initial amount of people
Stop.
killed in this massacre potentially.
No one would.
Real quick, look, even that was hogwash. There were others who said, who put that at 3,000. You know, when a white man say 300, he really means 3,000. It was way more than 300. They lie about every goddamn thing, man. They killed thousands in that. But 300. Anyway, man, run the video. I'm getting emotional when I shouldn't be. Go ahead, seventh answer.
Look like hospital. I mean, beds up in the debris. Good Lord.
I know. I see it, seventh answer. I see it. Damn, man.
Spared. This was, babies were attacked, children, adults.
And there was never anybody brought to justice. No white Tulsans were arrested or charged with anything. Hundreds of people died, thrown into a mass grave, their property destroyed, and nobody has ever been held accountable for it.
We were just roaming around out in the woods out in North Tulsa.
Much of the area, the 35 to 40 acres, had been burned down. Hospitals had been burned, so there was nowhere for the African American community to go. And this happens over an 18-hour period.
In the aftermath of the massacres, thousands of survivors were rounded up and brought to these internment camps. And among those people was Mabel Little. And she told us about her experience when KOCO spoke to her back in the 80s.
Monday.com, the opposite of any work platform we tried in the
We left our home. We went north. See, we kept going north. And until the militia came, they brought us back on trucks.
My husband's uncle was put in an internment camp, and a white man had to sign for a black person to get out of the camp. And a white man said, "This is my brother," so he could get out.
When a community is burned, everyone can see it, everyone can smell it, everyone can see the effects of it the next day, the next week, the next month, the next year. Everyone was affected.
We've owned this parcel of land, 309 North Greenwood Avenue, since 1908. We are the oldest continuous landowners in the entire Greenwood district.
Our basement is the only thing that survived the worst race massacre in American history. They didn't wait to rebuild right away. They still saw fit to come worship God.
A week later, they were taking communion in whatever was left of the basement of their church. And it just shows just how much of a refuge that place provides to people in the community, even to this day.
The basement surviving in the midst of this racial tragedy, I feel it's just the divine power of God. I know that there was some architecture ingenuity involved in it, but he chose Vernon. And he chose a basement. It reminds me of the text that says, "The stone the builders rejected has become now the chief cornerstone." And so I think Vernon was spared to show God's glory.
Reverend Dr. Turner took me down to the basement and you could see in the basement a window that was still there where he said people that were escaping the massacre came through to hide from the angry white mob. Mecca is our weekend evening anchor here at KOCO5. She's been here longer than I have, well loved and in the community here, very connected and plugged into the community. I knew more about the Tulsa Race Massacre than I knew.
Downstairs, they have jars of soil where people were killed. They may not have been able to save people. They may not have been able to give them the proper burial, but what they could do was take some of that soil and save it and be able to share part of that story in that way. And that's heavy. And I think that's what I felt walking through the basement of that church is heavy. Heaviness of what hatred can do.
It was a surreal moment. You knew that you were standing in the middle of history. You were standing in the middle of sacred ground.
This was an area that was intent on rebuilding.
The government didn't come in and try to help out or rebuild. Things were burned down and left in ashes. Certain ordinances only allowed them to build and use certain materials.
He advised his clients to build with orange crates, boxes, anything, build. And when they would be arrested for violating the ordinance, my father would go and spring them, as we say, get them out of jail.
We couldn't put up the type of buildings that we wanted to start with because we had to just put up what could live in a little shack building. But from that on, it was just a miracle, just telling you the truth that happened. Because there's nobody in the world, I don't think, could have made a comeback like the black folks of Tulsa, because they had nothing in the world to help them from the city. I've never heard of it in other place, and I've traveled all over this country and been abroad, but I've never heard of a place that people being treated like they were in North Tulsa in all of my life.
Survivors of this massacre built back strong years later. They came back resilient. And of course, urbanization and desegregation and other things wiped it out once again.
They had their own finance companies, they had their own banks, and they catered to one another. You didn't have to go outside of that community to do anything. Now they have to go outside the community in order to get regular services. North Tulsa is like a food desert.
Urban renewal and urbanization, these highways, this is what destroyed Black Wall Street. It's about a block right now from its former glory. There's not a lot left of it.
You see the plaques on the ground in front of where businesses used to be, and that it extends all the way down Greenwood, all the way throughout the OSU Tulsa campus. And it's amazing to just wrap your mind around what it used to be.
And it's incredible when you think about what Black people were able to do back then at that time. And to go there and not be able to see exactly what they created, it's painful. It's painful to know that hate could take out lives, could take out the future from the people. They basically robbed the people of everything they had.
Did you know that nearly half of US TV streaming time is on?
As an educator, does it frustrate you to see how many people don't know about the Tulsa Race Massacre?
Absolutely.
It was not something to come up in the curriculum. It may be something now in the curriculum, but it's probably a real short chapter.
I learned about it through work. When I learned about it, I was embarrassed that I didn't know about it.
Exactly.
Then the more that I learned, I was shocked to find out that most people didn't know about it. I've been in Oklahoma for about 6 years now.
You had generations grow up in this city who never heard about it. I didn't hear about it until I was in my mid-20s. And now there's been more written about and reported on this event in the last 5 years than there were in the previous 95 years combined.
Once it gets spread outside the community, then it's going to be too hard to keep it down, too hard to suppress, and then you got to deal with it.
There's a push by the library system and others in the community to incorporate this into the curriculum, to get education kits out to teachers that may be struggling with how to teach the massacre, especially to younger kids.
We should know our history, and Black history is history in general. I think it's important also for young Black children to know that they stand on the backs of people who were incredible.
They built up a city that was Wakanda before Wakanda. I've seen the portrayal in Watchmen. I remember the night that aired, Twitter was just abuzz. People were saying, wait, this actually happened in America? There were people that were asking questions. National news outlets started to do stories. I thought that was amazing. The power of pop culture, bringing things to light to an audience that may not necessarily go out and seek it themselves.
Lovecraft was unique and an excellent a portrayal of the pain of what happened. People learn in different ways. There are people who learn by seeing. Kinesthetic learners, they learn by doing. So all of that is important to reach in every area of getting the message out. And so I appreciate that. And that all moves it forward.
With it being the 100-year anniversary, I feel like there are a lot of people who are interested in supporting the things that are happening here, and it's awesome to be sharing this history, and everybody needs to know.
What happened in the race massacre is that civil order completely broke down and was overwhelmed by hatred, and people lost their homes and their lives as a result of that. And that is absolutely something that can still happen today.
You look at, just tying it into today, the George Floyd verdict, the Derek Chauvin trial, you look at the police narrative that was put out after it, completely different than what you found out in the trial and what people shot on their phones and what eyewitnesses saw. And that just shows how important it is to speak your truth.
That's all we have in general. We just make it official, whether it's a television station, a magazine, or a newspaper. That's a conversation that we've had. That's a story that was shared. So we know how important the stories and the eyewitness accounts are to share from person to person to person. We just get to do it in an official way. For so long, what happened here on Black Wall Street went untold. Fear and unbearable pain in the aftermath.
The language has changed now. Nobody in civilized company, as I like to say, refers to it as a riot anymore. Pretty much it's always called what it is, a massacre, really attempted genocide.
The Library of Congress and the University of Oklahoma got the name officially changed in the United States of America from the Tulsa Race Riot to the Tulsa Race Massacre.
Why has it been called a riot all these years rather than a massacre? It's good to see those changes. What happens next is the question.
I'm hopeful, I'm optimistic about it, but it's a slow process, and I'm sometimes discouraged about the slowness of the process.
We haven't had a district attorney in our city's history that's ever even investigated the race massacre. We haven't had an attorney general in our state's history that's ever investigated the race massacre. And how can you not investigate the worst crime in your city, states, or nation's history? How can you not investigate the first time airplanes were used to drop bombs on American soil in this country's history? For the first time in Tulsa's history, a sitting mayor has agreed to do mass grave excavations.
People are seeing how much of a injustice and how much of a tragedy this was. People are finding that courage.
Imagine being able to build an app
Okay,
with your
all right. Hold on for a second. We're gonna get back on. But you know what? Look, man. You know why they don't investigate it? Because they don't care. That's why. They don't care. But see, this is why we can't let this die down. We can't forget our history. And that's why it's up to us. You know, I did feel some kind of way when I heard about, the miracle of the church basement surviving. What the hell? People died, man. There will be some, and I got to put this, and I'm being careful when I say it. There'll be some saying, well, where was God at to stop them from doing it? Y'all all marveling about a church basement. And people got obliterated, killed. That is a question that has been posed, and I gotta put it there. I don't see nothing great about a freaking church basement when thousands of lives were obliterated and no one's been brought to justice for it. Just put it out there, y'all.
Yeah, I think he was saying it in the nature of that, because after he said that they tried to get out of the city or certain places, they wasn't allowed to, and the only way they was allowed is because some white person claimed the black person to let them by. But the only safe haven place that he was trying to identify that would allow them to go in was the church.
All right, seventh answer. Fair enough. Thank you for that answer and that understanding. Let's run it.
You're saying the stone that was rejected. I like that part. You feel me?
Yeah. I felt that one too.
So that's why he was bringing that in. It was only standing building. That's how I looked at it. It was only standing building that, you know what I mean, that they couldn't defeat. I don't know. You know what I mean?
No, but listen, that your optimistic appraisal is welcome. It just quelled the demon that was in me a hot second. If you must know, thank you. So let's keep the energy going.
And being the fact that you see the surrounding area, everything was pretty much to the ground. So anything that was standing was a miracle. You know what I mean? Even if it was a church or whatever it was, you feel me? And they couldn't pretty much destroy that.
Well, there you go. Your optimistic appraisal is received. Let's keep the energy going, seventh answer.
And they're using that to help guide their search for where to look for people, where some of these bodies may be dumped. We've heard stories about bodies being dumped in the Arkansas River, people being driven out of the state to other places and being dumped outside of the state.
We've collected those stories, and they're really helping guide a lot of the search that we're doing, trying to find the mass graves from the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. Oak Lawn Cemetery, which is a city-owned cemetery, was the main cemetery for Tulsa in 1921. We were looking for individual graves in there, doing test excavations, looking for individual unmarked graves of people, and came upon a mass grave of people. They were all put in at the same time, and they are directly next to the only two known marked graves of race massacre victims. We will start an exhumation of that site. Best outcome, as far as we're concerned, is that DNA could be identified within these remains, and we could find their descendants, and these descendants could finally know what happened to their ancestors who disappeared on that night a century ago.
I think reparations is a big conversation right now, and I know there's conflict there. Speaking to the mayor on the other side, though, he said it would require them charging a tax, probably, or raising taxes on people and taking that tax money in order to pay reparations.
And there's another notion of reparations, which is around acknowledging that there is a disparity in Tulsa between the lives that Black Tulsans have had the opportunity to live in the last century and the lives that white Tulsans have had the opportunity to live in the last century. We're very focused on the plan that we've created. It's called the Resilient Tulsa Strategy. It's the city's first ever strategic plan to address issues of racial disparity in our city.
These buildings didn't burn themselves down. These folks didn't kill themselves and dump their bodies in mass graves. People did that to people. And those folks who did it never have ever been charged with a crime. There is no expiration date on morality. If we can admit the Tulsa Race Massacre, which is one of my biggest fights now, is wrong, then why can't we also agree that something ought to be done to atone for it? Atonement is synonymous with reparations. We have a petition on change.org. We have now over 25,000 signatures. It is one of as a born and raised American who grandparents fought in the wars of this country, people that I know who have loved this nation. It is not reciprocated. We have always done more for America than what she's done for us. And so part of me fighting for reparations is to help right that scale.
Greenwood, covering 35 city blocks, burned to the ground. No repercussions. You just could do that. You have people who are saying there need to be reparations to the people. What we hear you saying, you gave reparations to other groups. What will you do to make reparations for this? So there's hope, and I think every step helps.
We have the Greenwood Cultural Center. We have several other locations like Oklahoma Center for Community and Justice that does a lot of reparative work. Even the churches, they're doing work to bring communities together to say, what can you do to make this better?
John Hope Franklin Park acknowledges that Tulsa has a very bitter past when it comes to race relations, reconciliation, getting everybody to cooperate and move together towards a brighter future. And that's ultimately what that park and what that space is about.
History is something we must live with, both good and bad. And the bad history helps us overcome it, and we can then perhaps make good history. So we have to look at the past as it was and not as we wish that it had been.
All right. As we continue on, if you're just now tuning in, okay, you are now tuned into the Lion's Den. The conversation continues, talking about what's on your mind. And we're your hosts, the Seventh Answer, Lady Karima, and I am Dark Storm. And tonight we are talking about Tulsa, Oklahoma, but in memory of Queen Mother. Okay, Viola Fletcher. And we're not going to let her fight die. We're not going to let this fight go. We're going to keep Tulsa, Oklahoma, Greenwood, Tulsa, Oklahoma in the memory banks for all eternity, depending on how long this society is still left to run. But the bottom line is, you know why? There's no restitution. You want to know why? They don't want to talk about it because you're dealing with a lot of, well, as the father and mother are, so shall the children be in some instances. So if father and mother were rat-fink thieves, their children will be rat-fink thieves and support them in their evil. That's why. All that, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You guys are lazy. You don't want, and this is what they strive so hell-bent on keeping out the history. This is why they have black fatigue, because they're tired of us being a stain and reminder that all this sanctimonious, self-righteous bull crap is exactly what it is. Sanctimonious, self-righteous bull crap that now other nations have been using against them time and time again. And they're going to keep on using it. Because we're not part of the Coon Brigade, and we're not going to forget. And when you tune in to the Lion's Den, we're going to help you not forget. So we're giving you different aspects, different angles and everything. As we continue to talk about the Tulsa Massacre, we're going to talk about other destructions of Black wealth and prominence and dominance and success, and pulling ourselves up by our bootstraps, as well as the conversation continues.
The three had been locked in a year's. An Oklahoma judge dismisses the reparations lawsuit filed by the last three known survivors of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. The three had been locked in a years-long court battle against the city of Tulsa and other groups and officials over the opportunities taken from them when the city's Greenwood neighborhood was burned to the ground, killing hundreds and leaving thousands homeless. The city of Tulsa requested the lawsuit be dismissed with prejudice, noting in part, saying that simply being connected to a historical event does not provide a person with an unlimited rights to seek compensation from any project in any way related to that historical event. And apparently the judge agreed. Well, Demario Solomon Simmons, he's the attorney representing the survivors, and he stood in the historic Vernon AME Church, the only standing Black-owned church structure from the riots. He says that he is not done fighting for justice so far.
We didn't expect this because last year, Judge Wall said we could move forward. And so when I had to make that phone call to my clients on a Friday night because I didn't want them to hear about it through the news the way I did. And the question was, how can this happen? She said we were moving forward. And we don't have a good decision, a good reason for that. Because as of today, as of this time, we have not seen a written order. It seems every time Black people seek justice in this community and this nation, the goalposts are moved. Because in May of last year, when she said we could move forward, and then in August of last year, when she wrote the order and kicked out some of our descendants in this great church, we felt like that was unjust, but we decided to move forward based on what she wrote. And we conformed our case bill to what she told us to do, basing it on property. And yet we're still kicked out. But the good news, it's not over. It's not over. It's not over. This is not a defeat. This is a hurdle. You know, I grew up in a church like this. The battle's not won yet, but we're still on the battlefield. I can't sing, so I ain't gonna be waiting on that. So we will be moving forward with an appeal on this case to the Oklahoma Supreme Court. Even in here in Oklahoma, we know we have a conservative Supreme Court, but we believe the law and the facts are so clear that any lawyer, any judge that's actually looking at the documents will say, hey, you can let these people into court. This is what the law requires. This is America. And when we do our appeal, we're going to appeal not only for our three survivors, but for those descendants who were kicked out before, and to bring this church, Vernon AME, which is the only surviving structure from the massacre, to be put back into this case. And we're also calling upon, once again, the federal government, President Joe Biden, who came here 2 years ago. And he stood right across the street And he acknowledged that the massacre was the worst race massacre in the history of this nation. He acknowledged that the pain, the destruction, the mayhem of 40 blocks being destroyed, planes dropping bombs, 12,000 people made homeless overnight. He acknowledged that and said there needs to be justice. So we're calling on President Joe Biden and the Department of Justice to come in and do a federal investigation of the massacre pursuant to the Emmett Till Act, Cold Case Act of 2007, reauthorized in 2016. That can be done today. And if the last week has shown us with Ryan Walters, the Secretary of Education, saying the massacre has nothing to do with race massacre has nothing to do with race, with a judge kicking us out on a late night Friday night without any real understanding of why at this point. And just recently, the mayor of this city, G.T. Bynum, saying that he's happy that this case was dismissed because he doesn't believe any Tulsans have gained from the massacre. It's not about what Tulsans gained, it's for what people like Regina Goodwin's family and the descendants and survivors lost during the massacre.
So this one is cool. You basically connect your Shopify account and it's able.
Yeah, Joe Biden acknowledged it. Joe Biden said a lot of things. But you know why? Because he wanted the black vote. As soon as he learned he won, he gave the middle finger to everything he ever said. He all like the North American and Seminole Indians said, white men speak with forked tongue. Well, let's stop playing, man. And they always acknowledge it. Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, acknowledged it. Sure, he said, oh, you can do a study. But when San Francisco actually had the impetus and the momentum to begin to allocate $5 million per person to begin that reparations issue, which would have branched out. Oh, what? Wait. You niggas are just supposed to be studying, not reaching a conclusion. Yeah, Joe Biden acknowledged it. They always acknowledge a study or an examination, but the action, they never make a promise. Listening is an art. They never promise to do anything about it. That's the key. What is called benign neglect. Don't promise them anything. And this is why, right after Barack Obama, the Democrats have been, although they have made a little comeback this year, but still, a lot of black folks finally delineated and still are. And that's a good thing. But the thing is, we don't make them. This judge, yeah, they acknowledged it. We can go forward with it. They did say that. They didn't say anything about they're going to rule in those people's favor. That's what they always do. Speak with forked tongue. And there's so many of us who still trust them. Anyway, run the video, seventh answer.
We're going to go to our panel now. I want to welcome Dr. Omayo Congo Dibinga, Senior Professional Lecturer at School of International Service at American University in Washington, D.C., and former Georgia State Representative Renita Shannon out of Atlanta, and political analyst Brittany Lee Lewis joins us from New Jersey, where I am from. Hello, all of you. Good to see you. I want to start with you, Dr. Dibingo. I want to ask you, what is your takeaway from this decision by the court? This has been a battle that has been going on for so long, seemed to have a lot of meat on the bone to it. But legally, the court said this just couldn't be done. What is your takeaway?
Well, first of all, I'm glad to hear, him say that, this is not over. He's been a guest on the show so many times and has educated us richly on this issue. But also we have to be mindful of the fact that there have been other cases across the world where people have received reparations right here in the United States alone. Rosewood in Florida, for example, or when you look at issues relating to the Holocaust in Canada, they're doing some work as relates to indigenous communities there. We see California has come out with some recommendations. Places like Evanston in Illinois have also been looking at this issue as well. Oklahoma has this MAGA mentality where in every way, shape, or form, they are trying to erase and dismiss and disrespect the history of what happened during this time. Just last week, I believe, the superintendent of Oklahoma's school districts was talking about how we can't talk about the Tulsa massacre as something relating to race. It's literally called the Tulsa race riots, but he's saying we can't talk about that because that's critical race theory. This is a whole nother conversation about what critical race theory actually is. But when I talk about this particular area of Oklahoma, this particular issue, in my book, Lies About Black People, this country has a history of trying to remove Black people from their land. If they can't do it by violence, they will do it by legislation. And throughout history, there's always been this game of back and forth, or whatever effort doesn't work. So even the people who they couldn't fully remove from there, when you got into earlier years, the 60s and the 70s, the 80s, they had other policies to remove Black people from their land. And so this is a back and forth that we constantly see with our people in this country. What happened here with this particular decision is the greatest and latest example of it. But this is a pattern. But I'm so glad we have lawyers like Mario and others who are not giving up, because our people, our elders, they deserve better than this.
And how can you tell the story of the riots without telling a story of the riots? It just doesn't make any sense. Renita, I want to bring you into this conversation. What's your takeaway from this decision? Because we are talking about telling a story without telling the story, and this will probably be erased more from history because of the fact that they did not get what they wanted so far in court.
Well, my takeaway is that this is a truly shameful decision by the judge. There was absolutely no reason to toss this case out. As Dr. Domingo said, we have seen periods in time where folks have been compensated by the U.S. government for poor treatment. So, for example, Japanese Americans who were compensated for being placed in internment camps. And so the Tulsa race riots, anybody who knows anything about the story knows that this area was demolished, mostly because it was a Black, self-sufficient, well-to-do town that was completely operating completely self-sufficient, and there were white folks in the area that just didn't like it. And so with this ruling, what I see is the state of Oklahoma deciding that they are going to shirk their responsibility to make these families whole and make those who were impacted by the Tulsa massacre, they're shirking their responsibility to make them whole, and it really is distasteful. But this would be an easy layup for President Biden, for him to have the DOJ step in. The DOJ is there for exactly this. When you cannot fairly get justice from your local government, whether that be city, county, or state, that is when the DOJ is supposed to step in and sort of be a referee and also an enforcer of justice when you're not able to get justice. So I'm hoping the Biden administration is taking a look at this. I'm glad the attorney is going to appeal, but the DOJ really needs to step in and make Oklahoma do what is right.
Yeah, and that seems like the logical next step. And as I said, we are going to have a guest on tomorrow, the attorney, to talk about that. Hopefully he will get into that specific, and maybe there will be that follow-up. Brittany, I want to turn the conversation to you because, their legal argument in terms of the plaintiffs, they said that this was a nuisance. This was the same argument that was made in the opioid cases, and they won those cases. $1 billion of money, $1 billion have been given to states across the country. But now we come to this, which certainly it was a nuisance that a whole town was burned down and people died, right? 1,000 homes burned. What is your takeaway on this Oklahoma decision and what it means for the future of how we regard this place in history?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with some of the other statements that were made, right? And I think to your point, a nuisance, this was more than a nuisance, right? We're talking about an estimated 1.5 million in damages during that period, which was around 20 million today. So these individuals deserve to be compensated. And I mean, it's the city of Tulsa, it's the Chamber of Commerce, the state of Oklahoma. They've really treated the people of Greenwood and North Tulsa, along with the descendants of the Tulsa Race Massacre, second-class citizens, really not worthy of respect, right? And the material that was taken away from them in that legacy. And it just amazes me how, organizations like the Justice for Greenwood Foundation, for example, are able to provide monies to the survivors, but the state refuses to, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the really horrible aspect of it. But I do, and I do want to draw us back to this point about what it means if we do, right? If they do decide to compensate. We know that the United States has, and I think it was mentioned a moment ago, the U.S. paid out $1.6 billion to more than 82,000 people of Japanese ancestry who were placed in the internment camps in World War II. So I would love for the DOJ to step in, because we know it's high time for the government to really put the money where their mouth is in more ways than one. But if they continue to compensate us for the harm that they have done to us, and this isn't just in Tulsa, because we know there's been massacres and there's descendants of those individuals who have been victims of these massacres in New Orleans in 1866, in St. Bernard Parish in 1868, in Wilmington in 1989. We could go on. Springfield.
That's right.
1919. Don't even get me started.
I think you're started.
We can keep talking about just how many times, and just in general, right? In enslavement, right? It opens up, if they really start compensating us, continue to compensate us, it's going to completely underpin the entire economic system, because we are literally owed so much for the tragedies and things that we have been through as a people.
Yeah, and we're back. And see, that's what it's all about. They don't, but yeah, I don't want to hear this crap about the underpinning of the country. They'll go under. No, look. If they've been given the state of Israel, as we speak right now on this broadcast, $300 billion, $9 billion to Ukraine, and so on, and $40 billion in our faces to Argentina, right in our face. I don't want to hear this crap about it'll underpin or it'll break the country if they give us reparations. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear it. That's garbage. We're owed, and you know what? That reparations is going to come. It's going to come one way or the other. As the conversation continues, like I said, we're here to appeal to your intellect and not your emotions. We hope that you out there in Lions Den land, for our younger generation who are watching, like I said, this is the history you need to learn. And if your parents didn't teach you, we're going to show you. We're going to continue on. All right? Because as the young lady said, there are other stories. And in our video collage and news collage, we have videos available that's going to tell you about other bombings, floodings, and destruction of Black progress in this country. When our freedom and our release should have been in play, we were getting it out the mud, literally, building on our own, doing our own. Here comes some deliberate, demonic, outside interference. Poor white trash, jealous, okay, who came in and destroyed. And you know what? What's changed, y'all? I'm going to actually do a follow-up on this story, because I don't know if any of you out there have been noticing, but I have. I'm going to say just in the last 15 years, have any of you all noticed a number of news stories that whenever a Black man or woman develops or creates a business, they somehow come down with a severe case of death? They get shot, or some other unfortunate death. I mean, I forget the young lady's name, but don't hold me to it. I'm gonna do a story. I'm gonna prove what I'm talking about. She had just opened up a hair care products store. It was booming. Everything was perfect. And then all of a sudden, some masked men walked in and gunned her down and trying to rob the store. And then current WBC, WBA, I think welterweight champion Gervonta Davis stepped in and paid for her funeral. Seventh answer, I like this video, but I want to use another video. This is talking about what's going on currently in Mississippi. See if you can find the 16th Street Baptist Church video in the collage of articles I sent you. This goes into Mississippi, but I really don't want to cover this at this point. I want to drive home a point, or our point that we gave on previous episodes. If you can find that video, I prefer that. But like I was saying, but if not, we can rock out with this one. But getting back on what I was saying, Gervonta Davis, world champion Gervonta Davis, stepped in and covered all her funeral expenses and had her put away beautifully. But nothing's changed. I've noticed over the years a number of Black proprietors in all walks of life who have met with some very unfortunate deaths. But that's another show, another topic. Fair use, y'all. Fair use. Listen up.
Sunday, September 15th, 1963. 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama. 4 Ku Klux Klan members planted over a dozen sticks of dynamite attached to a timing device beneath the steps of the church. At around 10:22 a.m., the bomb exploded in the back stairwell of the church. The explosion killed 4 girls: Denise McNair, Carol Robertson, Cynthia Dion Wesley, and Addie Mae Collins. Over 20 other people were injured from the explosion. As a key civil rights meeting place, this church was a frequent target of bomb threats. Within 7 hours of the bombing, 2 Black boys in Birmingham were shot to death. Johnny Robinson was shot with a shotgun in the back by Birmingham police officer Jack Parker. Virgil Lamar Ware was shot with a pistol by Larry Joe Sims and Michael Lee Farley. These children, unoffending, innocent, and beautiful, were the victims of one of the most vicious and tragic crimes ever perpetrated against humanity. Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Segregation is the act of separating people historically on the basis of race and/or gender. Segregation implies the physical separation of people in everyday activities, in professional life, and in the exercise of civil rights. The European Commission defines segregation as the act by which a natural or legal person separates other persons on the basis of race, color, language, religion, nationality, or national or ethnic origin without an objective and reasonable justification. Segregation can exist de jure, or in law, or de facto, in practice. De jure segregation in the United States was based on laws against miscegenation, such as interracial marriages, see Loving v. Virginia, and laws against hiring people of the targeted ethnicity for jobs. After the abolition of slavery by the promulgation of the 13th Amendment, racial discrimination in the southern United States was governed by Jim Crow laws that imposed strict segregation of the races. In Plessy v. Ferguson, rendered on May 18, 1896, the Supreme Court authorized southern states to impose racial segregation by law, provided that the conditions offered to the various racial groups by such segregation were equal, a doctrine known as separate but equal. This de jure segregation continued until the 1960s. In Brown v. Board of Education, Brown 1, rendered on May 17, 1954, the Supreme Court held racial segregation in public schools unconstitutional under the 14th Amendment, even though the service rendered therein was claimed to be of equal quality. The ruling in Brown 1 did not list or specify a particular method or way of how to proceed in ending racial segregation in schools. The court's ruling in Brown 2, 1955, demanded states to desegregate with all deliberate speed. These cases acted as the end of the separate but equal doctrine in the United States. April 1963. Known today as the Birmingham Campaign, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights, Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. joined together for a massive campaign directed against Birmingham's segregation system by placing pressure on its merchants during the Easter season, the second biggest shopping season of the year. This campaign consisted of sit-ins, marches on City Hall, a boycott of downtown merchants, voter registration drives, and mass meetings where Dr. King spoke about his philosophy of nonviolence, its methods, and for volunteers for this campaign. The city retaliated by arresting hundreds of protesters. The city obtained an injunction against the protests. After heavy debate, the leaders of this campaign decided to disobey the court order and continue the protests. We cannot in good conscience obey such an injunction, which is an unjust, undemocratic, and unconstitutional misuse of the legal process. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. April 12, 1963. Dr. King was arrested in Birmingham in violation of the injunction and was placed into solitary confinement. From there, Dr. King wrote Letter from Birmingham Jail. By April 20th, 1963, Dr. King was released after bail money was available. A new strategy to include young persons in protest was proposed. On May 2nd, 1963, over 1,000 African American students attempted to march into downtown Birmingham. Hundreds were arrested. Photographs and videos of officers beating children with clubs, blasted by high-pressure fire hoses, and attacked by police dogs spread nationwide on televisions and newspapers. On May 8, 1963,
I'm sorry,
Dr. King accepted a compromise to halt the demonstrations on.
Yeah, see, this is that black fatigue we were telling you about earlier. This is what the images now. See, one thing about Martin Luther King's movement, it definitely did. It brought worldwide attention of what was transpiring here in America, especially culminating with the assassination of John Fitzgerald Kennedy, the president. See, these are the images that put a stain on that whole America, the land of the free, home of the brave, and all that other sanctimonious, self-proclaimed garbage. Let the video run, Seventh Dancer.
Quest of negotiators, and by May 10, 1963, an agreement was reached with a series of acts to pave the way toward desegregation known as the Birmingham Truce Agreement. The city agreed to desegregate lunch counters, restrooms, drinking fountains, and fitting rooms, to hire African Americans in stores as salesmen and clerks, and to release the jailed demonstrators. Segregationists violently retaliated with a series of violent attacks. May 1st, 1963, the Gaston Motel, where Dr. King and other leaders were previously staying, was destroyed by explosives. The next day, the home of Alfred Daniel King, Dr. King's brother, was also attacked. August 20th, 1963, NAACP attorney Arthur Shore's house was firebombed, and again on September 4th, 1963, for trying to help integrate the Birmingham public schools.
You see what I'm saying?
Governor George Wallace used the Alabama National Guard to block court-ordered.
You see what I'm saying, Seven? These some pyromaniac, but they love bombing. God damn. Pyromaniac ass psycho and sociopaths.
Right, and they love doing stuff in my birthday month, September. Good Lord.
Yeah, I see that. I peeped that. Anyway, let's keep the energy going, Seventh Answer. Wow.
Desegregation of public schools in Birmingham. September 9th, 1963, President John F. Kennedy federalized the Alabama National Guard and sent them to desegregate the University of Alabama. Less than a week later, Klan members bombed Birmingham's 16th Street Baptist Church. The clock stopped at exactly 10:22 a.m. The only surviving stained glass window in the church's east wall is of an image of Jesus, but with the face knocked out.
Yeah, okay. Hey, they ain't like the image either. Okay, I understand.
I know.
The FBI conducted an investigation and in 1968 narrowed their list of primary suspects to 4 known Klansmen and segregationists, Robert Edward Chambliss, Thomas Edwin Blanton Jr., Bobby Frank Cherry, and Herman Frank Cash. The official reason why prosecutors did not indict any of the suspects until years later was due to insufficient evidence to convict the perpetrators, as witnesses were reluctant to talk, physical evidence was lacking, and FBI surveillance information was believed inadmissible. In 1971, Alabama Attorney General Bill Baxley reopened the case. Mr. Baxley built trust with reluctant witnesses to come forth to testify and discovered that
Hey, there you go. I see you pointing out the name. J. Edgar Hoover.
accumulated by the FBI had not been disclosed to county prosecutors under orders of FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover. November 14, 1977. Robert Chambliss was convicted of murder and sentenced to several terms of life imprisonment. May 1, 2001. Thomas Blanton was convicted and sentenced to 4 life sentences in prison. May 22, 2002. Bobby Frank Cherry was convicted of 4 counts of murder. Herman Cash passed away on February 7, 1994, and was never prosecuted for the murders. Birmingham Police Department officer Jack Parker was never indicted for the fatal shooting of Johnny Robinson. Although the FBI tried to reopen the case in 2009, it was ultimately decided that the Bureau could not indict anyone in the case, as Officer Parker was already deceased. Officer Parker died in 1977. Larry Joe Sims and Michael Lee Farley were arrested and charged with first-degree murder. In 1964, an all-white jury convicted Sims of second-degree murder. Farley later pleaded guilty to the same. Both were sentenced to 7 months in jail. However, the sentence was suspended by the judge, and the boys were released, only serving probation until 1965. Decades later, in 1997, Farley reached out to the Wares family to apologize. Sims called in 2003. In 1873, the first black church in Birmingham was formed under the name the First Colored Baptist Church of Birmingham, Alabama. The congregation originally worshipped in different buildings before finally settling into its present location in 1880. In 1884, a brick building was erected to house the church, but in 1908, the city of Birmingham condemned the building and ordered it to be torn down. Mr. Wallace Rayfield, the state's only black architect, was commissioned by the church officials to design a new building. With T.C. Wyndham, a black contractor from Birmingham, the church was built and completed in 1911. A central stronghold in fighting against the evils of segregation, the church provided much-needed strength and safety for black men, women, and children. As one of the few primary institutions that belonged to the African American community, the church provided a safe social center and lecture hall where famous African American guests would be able to speak and engage with this community, such as W.E.B. Du Bois, Mary McLeod Bethune, Paul Robeson, and Ralph Bunche. It was thus given the nickname Everybody's Church, inviting African Americans from across the city and neighboring towns to take part in its programs and activities. The church's location being near downtown Birmingham's commercial district, municipal buildings and parks, in addition to having one of the largest auditoriums available to the African Americans in Birmingham, made it an ideal central meeting place and rallying point for civil rights protests, demonstrations, petitions, and campaigns. On September 15, 1963, at approximately 10:22 a.m., an explosive planted by at least 4 Klansmen exploded, killing 4 girls and injuring more than 20 other people. Later that day, 2 boys were shot to death. For the African American community in Birmingham, such acts of terrorism were commonplace. Nearby, along the city's color line on Center Avenue, explosions of African American homes were common for decades, giving that area the nickname Dynamite Hill. It was common for these homes to also be targeted for drive-by shootings. Despite the nonstop terrorism against African American families, many held their ground for the larger political war against racism and segregation. The bombing at the church was less than 3 weeks after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s famous "I Have a Dream" speech in Washington, D.C. With news of the bombing reaching national headlines, federal involvement in Alabama became increased, and the following protests and demonstrations gained further national attention and pressure toward Washington. The next year, in 1964, the Civil Rights Act was passed, followed by the Voting Rights Act in 1965, making literacy tests and poll taxes illegal. After repairs to the church were funded with over $300,000 in unsolicited gifts from around the country, the church reopened the following year on June 7, 1964. Throughout the years, the church has gone through several renovations and restorations, including addressing persistent water damage, exterior brick facing failure, and waterproofing. A stained glass window depicting a black Jesus with his arms spread wide and one hand pushing away, designed by John Petz and gifted by the Country of Wales, remains installed and displayed in the church to this day. The hand pushing away symbolizes the black community's efforts to stop oppression and injustice. The other hand facing palm up symbolizes the unfathomable ability to forgive in the face of so much hate. On June 16, 1976, the church was added to the Alabama Register of Landmarks and Heritage. On September 17, 1980, the church was added to the National Register of Historic Places. On January 12, 2017, President Barack Obama declared the church as part of the Birmingham Civil Rights National Monument. In October 2019, the church was chosen for inclusion in the African American Civil Rights Network for its enduring connection to the Black freedom struggle. Today, the church is part of the Birmingham Civil Rights District and receives more than 200,000 visitors annually and an average weekly attendance of nearly 2,000. The current pastor is the Reverend Arthur Price. The church offers several programs such as Christian education, youth ministry, congregational care, and fellowship. The 16th Street Baptist Church offers tours of its historic grounds, led by docents that lead visitors on guided tours to the many spots of significance in and around the church. Exhibits cover the walls, providing information on the history of the church, Jim Crow, segregation in Birmingham, and the lives of the children that were so suddenly and horrifically torn away. A commemorative plaque outside the building shows the exact location the dynamite detonated. Visitors can also walk in the basement where the 4 little girls gathered before the bomb detonated. Tours with groups up to 30 people can be booked online at www.16thstreetbaptist.org/tours. For groups larger than 30 people, a special request will need to be made. At the time of this writing, tours are $10 per adult, $5.
And we're back. And as we continue on, I see big Mississippi's in the house. Yeah, some of us were already here before. Thomas Jefferson, these so-called founding fathers, invaded this place, big Mississippi. No one's refuting that as the conversation continues. As you can see, brothers and sisters, nothing has changed though. Oh man, that bombing, they some serious pyromaniacs. All right. But where's Nicki Minaj and Donald Trump talking about that though? See, this is what this is the angle we're coming from. All this liberation They want to go liberate somebody else in their country and what is going on. But yet here it is. They can't get their own racism and scumbaggery out of operation and function right here on American soil. And so this is why we continue to be that thorn, one of many voices, though, that's never going to let the society off the hook. We're going to continue to fight that the late, great, beautiful Viola Fletcher put in motion. Now, as promised, here we talked about the various other places, but like I said, what we tend to do is get other voices involved, because sometimes I find it amazing how people believe someone else quicker than they do us. Although we're proven to be solid in our journalism and all that we do here. But you know, hey, it is what it is. That's one of those mystiques. So as the conversation continues, listen up, you all.
A lake in Forsyth County massacre, where a white mob burned a vibrant Black community to the ground, which is crazy. Even crazier, dozens of other Black towns have been erased off the American map, not by burning them down, but by hiding them underwater. Don't know what I mean? Well, let's find out in a segment called How Did We Get Here? This is Lake Lanier. It's a lake in Forsyth County, Georgia, where people go swimming and boating and fishing and do a bunch of other lakey things. But before it was Lake Lanier, it was a town called Oscarville, Georgia. Now, Oscarville was a thriving, predominantly Black community with a church, a school, and dozens of homes, until the year 1912, when a very bad thing happened. Oh, two very bad things. In 1912, two Black teenagers were accused of rape. They were tried, convicted, and sentenced to death in a single day. And after they were executed, a mob of white men terrorized, drove out, or killed all the Black people in the surrounding area. And they did that until the entire Black community of Oscarville
as always, I'm sorry,
the county went from having over 1,000 Black residents in 1912.
And as always, beside the bombing, it's always two black guys. Now I'm starting to see where the Sopranos got that dark humor from. One or two black guys who rape a white woman. Always. Anyway, let me calm down. Run the video, Seventh Answer.
To zero in 1920. That story is so sad, it makes this story look like a comedy. After the Black community had been run off, the white people of Forsyth County said, you know what we could use? A big old lake. So they made one, right where the town of Oscarville had just been. They flooded the area and literally covered up the entire town with water. This is what it looks like right now. But the town is still under there. The homes and churches and schools, they're still down there. And now people go boating on top of them. Compared to that, this is truly a rom-com. Now, you might be thinking, what a weird, isolated incident. But just like the rat who ate the pizza in the subway, this story is both crazy and common. Ever heard of Collegia, Alabama? It was once a thriving Black community with a Black college, the first Black railroad, and literally hundreds of family homes. Today, it's Lake Martin. At least they had the decency to name it after a Black person. And if you think this kind of thing only happened in the South, let me introduce you to a place called Central Park. It's named after that coffee shop on Friends. Central Park used to have a Black community in it called York Hill. But the city of New York destroyed York Hill so that they could build the Central Park Reservoir. Because if there's one thing New York needs, it's another place for ducks to hang out. But if you come here, don't try and feed those ducks. They are very aggressive. Mess around and lose a finger. Now, when the residents of York Hill were kicked out of their homes, they fled to another Black community nearby called Seneca Village. And then a few years later, New York destroyed Seneca Village too, so that they could build Central Park on top of it. the craziest part of this story is that I work a few blocks away from a place where the government disappeared 2 Black communities. And until recently, I didn't know about any of it. You know why? Because it worked. They tried to erase Black communities and they came way too close. But now there are people doing the research. So we are finally learning about places like Henry and McKee Islands, which is now located under Lake Guntersville in Alabama, and Vanport, Oregon, which is now located under Delta Park. And all of these towns, which are currently literally underwater. Hey, wait, hold on. What was that last one? Old Neversink. That's a real place. Well, if we've learned one thing today, it's never assume something is unsinkable. There are over 100 drowned American towns, and many were destroyed in the name of something called development-induced displacement. That's when people have to leave their homes so the government can develop things like dams or parks or lakes. This happens to both white and Black people, but historically, when it happens, Black people and other people of color are undercompensated for their property or not compensated at all. The theory is that the short-term bad effects are worth the long-term benefits for the community, but it's not fair if the long-term gain is mostly for white people. Now, luckily, there's a solution. It's a very complicated system. It involves a series of, who am I kidding? Cut some dang checks. That's it. If you're going to kick Black people out of their homes, make sure they have the money to stay on their feet. Cut a dang check. And yes, you can pay their descendants too, because generational wealth is one of the many things that is destroyed when you put Black communities underwater. So cut a dang check. These drowned towns are part of the Black American history they don't want to teach you. It's ugly and it's gross, and we don't even know all of it. And the more we find out, the harder it is to love this place that would do those things to so many people. And if you're feeling this way, which I often do, you can try loving what this country could become instead. Our history may be full of pain, but our future has limitless possibilities. So look to the future while simultaneously being suspicious of every lake you see. This has been How Did We Get Here?
And yeah, we have now come to the end as we're now coming to the 3rd hour. But don't worry, don't despair, y'all. The conversation's gonna continue. And to answer your question, Big Mississippi, listen. The slave ships did happen. Slavery, not all the families of Israel were bought into slavery by way of ships, but Judah, Benjamin, and a portion of Levi were. And all the other families of Israel were subdued through other means and violence. And that's why we're in the predicament that we are currently in 2025. That's not too hard to understand, Big Mississippi. So, in closing, it has been the pleasure of the 7th Answer, Lady Karima and myself, Dark Storm, to bring to you the remembrance of the beautiful Queen Mother Viola Fletcher, who died at 111 years old. And we want all of us to, I want you all to understand, her fight is our fight. And we're going to keep on fighting and striving for the truth, as the good Lord said, unto death. And with that, 7th Answer, do you have any parting shots?
Please like, subscribe, share the information. Thanks for tuning in.
Okay, Big Mississippi, if you say I'm wrong, okay, that's neither here nor there. We thank you as always for allowing us to come into your mind, soul, and cipher. And don't worry, we're going to be back here talking about the legendary H. Rap Brown, the Black Panther Party. Who your H. Rap Brown, another legend that we lost. We're going to talk about him as well. And we always urge you all to go out here and check things out for yourself. And we give honor to the Lord in Christ, from whom all positive thoughts flow, as we both strive, as the seventh answer strives to be that moral woman, I strive to be that moral man. And we're going to come back here tomorrow, if Lord willing permits it, and we're going to continue the conversation. In the meantime, between time, be safe out here. Study and check things out for yourself. And parting, we love you all. And the spirit of God Cornelius. On the Hebrew tip, I say, Shalom, peace, ahab, love, and napash. Guard and protect your soul. Seventh answer, take us up out of here.
In the land of the free and the home of the brave, war is coming, Putin's on the stage. Conflict and bloodshed, a world in disarray.
Okay.
The drums of war are beating night and day. The ghosts of Crimea still linger in the air, as Usher's might is flexed without a care. The annexation's bitter taste still fresh and raw. The West warnings fall on deaf ears as Putin draws his law. The tanks rolling, the guns blazing roar. The people suffer as their future's torn. The world holds its breath as the conflicts wage. A new Cold War's brewing and the stakes are engaged. The language of diplomacy is lost as insults fly. The world trembles as the war drums beat and the soldiers die. The innocents cry, the mothers weep and mourn, as Putin's ambition leaves a trail of blood that's born. Trump's tariffs and trade wars, a famine in sight. Economic hardship, a global plight. The scales of justice unbalanced and worn. A cry for help as the people are torn. The markets tremble as the tariffs rise. A trade war's chaos as the world denies. The impacts felt from the farms to the floor, as America's allies become its foes once more. The rhetoric's heated as the tweets ignite. A global economy on the brink of fight. The WTO's rules are cast aside with disdain, as Trump's protectionism leaves the world in pain. The farmers suffer as their crops rot in the ground. The consumers pay as prices rise all around. The global economy on the edge of a cliff, as Trump's policies leave the world in a rift. Xi's pandemic, a global health scare. Masks and lockdowns, people everywhere. The virus spreads, a pestilence so dire. A world in lockdown, a future unsure. The markets crash as the virus spreads fast. A global panic as the death tolls amassed. The WHO's warnings are renewed at first, as China's secrecy leaves the world in the dark and cursed. The lockdowns and quarantines, a new normal's born, as the world's economies are brought to their knees in scorn. people suffer as their freedoms are curtailed. The virus knows no borders as it spreads unchecked and unveiled. The world is united in its fear and dismay as G's leadership is put on trial each day. The pandemic's impact will be felt for years to come as the word subtles to find a way to overcome Netanyahu's policies, a death toll so high. Gaza's cries, a humanitarian sigh. The world watches as lives are lost. A call for peace, but the violence cost. The Gaza Strip, a tiny land so warm. A people trapped with no way to be reborn. The blockade stranglehold, a slow and painful death as the world condemns the settlement's cruel breath. The rockets fly, the Iron Dome's might can't stop the bloodshed as the people take flight. The cycle of violence seems endless and cold. As the death toll rises, the world's hearts grow old. The two-state solution, a distant dream, as the settlements expand and a Palestinian scream. The world demands justice, but the cries fall on deaf ears, as Netanyahu's policies bring only tears and fears.